Hello. Oh my gosh. I was creating a list. Let's see, what's today? Thursday. Happy Thursday, everybody. I was creating a list of people. Let's see, the plan I had for the live stream was to create as comprehensive of a list as possible of all of the amazing allies for Red Berets for Medicare for All, both in so they're ats on Twitter, because Twitter is primarily where myself, the executive director and founder of Red Berets, where I organize at. So that's what I was doing. And then, of course, I checked Twitter, and there's this amazing tweet by Dr. Victoria Dooley. So that's why this episode is coming up right now. So let me just show you her tweet. She's been supportive for quite some time, along with Senator Nina Turner. But I'm still working on some purple Red Berets. You can see that I've got one of them on today that I plan to send, and I've got another. The lighting in here isn't very good, but I took some pictures, and this one's in progress. So my package that I am intending to mail off to her is belated, but thankfully Whole Washington, Georgia Davenport, field director of Whole Washington, sent a package, like an organizer bundle of Red Berets to Dr. Dooley so that she could, start getting some of these out there to people who are strong advocates for Medicare for All, and perhaps hopefully even organizing and volunteering for the movement, or perhaps for Senator Nina Turner's campaign for Ohio 11, whatever. They are hers to allocate because she is a Medicare for All champion and fearless. And the reason I say fearless is because we've worked so hard to just get, make sure that we could get Whole Washington, the solidarity of some movement organizers, because I know that we all need national Medicare for All. We realize this, and so there's kind of this hesitancy to kind of go all in for a one-payer state strategy, because we all need it, and people all across the whole country are desperate for it. Now more than ever with the pandemic. So I get why there is kind of a hesitancy to kind of focusing too much on one-payer states. At the same time, nobody understands how money in politics has corrupted both parties. And so, unfortunately, we do not have a Congress who is going to pass this legislation. We're working on it, right? We've got people that are working within the Democratic Party. We've got a Movement for a People's Party that are working on gaining ballot access. We have people that are working in nonpartisan ways. Organizations like Whole Washington, who don't endorse candidates, and don't endorse political parties. So you have a mix of people in the Whole Washington coalition. Some of them are we, because I'm a board member of Whole Washington. Sorry, the excitement has me kind of speaking on hyperdrive, because I just get very, very, very excited when we get movement leaders' support for our creative efforts. The Bernie's mittens have ignited kind of a national interest and passion in handcrafting. At least that's what I hope it will continue to do. Look at the enormous amounts of money that Bernie putting on those handcrafted mittens, hand-knit mittens, has raised for charitable organizations in his home state of Vermont. So sorry, I get a little bit distracted. There's literally a ton of different directions I could go in with this. But here is Dr. I've got a lot of glare, so that's not working very well. Okay, well, you can, if you're on Twitter, you easily can go If you are not following her already, I certainly hope you are, and I hope that you go and express gratitude, thank you, boost by commenting and liking, commenting, and retweeting. That's at Dr. So at Dr. Dooley, Dooley, MD. That's Dr. Victoria Dooley. So, when we get this kind of solidarity for people who are Medicare for All champions and a national surrogate of Bernie Sanders, who are also willing to excited and willing to include the grassroots and creative movement in Red Berets, and take a picture right there with the button Whole Washington and tag Whole Washington. She says, thankful for lots of Red Berets to get to good people to spread the word about Medicare for All, but methinks I will keep the pink. I think Fran crocheted the pink. Yes, she does look, Dr. Dooley does look really, really amazing in the pink. And I think she'll also look beautiful in purple. So I look forward to sending those. And then we had a retweet by Whole Washington. So they retweeted Dr. Dooley saying, a truly brave and beautiful person inside and out. Thank you, Dr. Dooley. We won't stop till we win. Rock that pink, Medicare for All. At Red Berets, Medicare for All. So, and it's at Red Berets M for All, in case you're not following me on Twitter. So that's really amazing. I'm really, really, really excited. So far, depending on the yarn I use, I think this is probably my favorite, knitted go-to beret. The thing is that crochet, the structure of it just tends to make, it tends to create a fabric that holds the structure of the beret oftentimes more effectively than knitting does, but it just depends on the pattern. So I am getting better. This is a really fast, this is stockinette for those of you that don't know anything about knitting, and that basically just means knit, 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 knit all the way around. Of course, besides this cool topographical, there was somebody who used the word topographical, and he's an architect. So it's so cool, to just see who follows me and who finds this idea interesting, even if they're not crafters. I had made the comment, this beret pattern is completely amazing. It seems to because of its something about it, it makes it hold its shape so much better than other patterns that I've knit. And he goes, it's the geometric topographical design or something like that. And which, if I was any good at geometry, I would probably that would be obvious. But anyway, it's very cool to just kind of tell people this is my one that I will, once I finish with this outgoing package for Dr. Dooley, I will knit more of these. They're my basic kind of go-to. And then you have something like this, which makes this amazing kind of swirl. It's a little kind of hard to see the actual pattern because it's this really cool tweed yarn that I got on clearance down at my local fiber store. Fibers, etc. Give them a shout out. They're just a mile down the street. And so I do a combination of sometimes knitting with cheap and cheerful yarn. This is a very dark, it's like a deep wine burgundy. And then there's, this isn't it, but it's kind of a true red. So Lion Brand, Pound of Love makes that two amazing shades of red. And when I need to knit kind of cheap and cheerful, I knit a lot of these, and I don't expect all handcrafters to donate all of their work. Crafters deserve to make a little something for their time. They are, it's labor, right? So we need to respect that. I choose to donate a lot of mine. My whole thing is I'm just going to keep knitting these and knitting these and knitting these. And I shouldn't just say choose. I have the luxury to choose because I'm doing okay, so, but oftentimes Whole Washington will at least try to reimburse the crafters for the yarn and maybe a little bit for their efforts. The overwhelming, quite a bit of it goes to Whole Washington. I I just feel like I need to slow down a little bit, take a deep breath. I get like this when I get very, very excited. And we have to be excited about these things, right? Because it is, right now, from day to day, I know for me personally, sometimes I go on to social media, onto Twitter particularly, and I just feel either angry or, kind of flat or hopeless, or, it runs the whole human gamut. I think that's part and parcel of what we're dealing with, because progressive populists understand that we have a one party corporate rule, basically, in the United States. So, while we were all about ending the current right wing administration, we have somebody currently sitting in the White House who has said he would veto Medicare for all if it ever landed on his desk, and quote, that nothing will fundamentally change. So that isn't anything that people who are champions for policy for the 99% are celebrating. So I guess what I'm saying is that when we have movement leaders who are showing solidarity for continuing to fight at the national level by, number one, organizing, just in organizing locally, connecting up all the different independent media and different groups that are fighting for this and continuing to build our coalitions. And as much as COVID will allow, safely trying to get out and do that, or organize on Zoom in your local communities too. I think I kind of started a thought and lost it there, but you get what I'm saying. We have to do that, and we're also trying to elect progressives. But then there's a very much needed debate about, well, okay, we're electing people who are running within the Democratic Party and running on real change, and then many of us feel that they need to turn and call out the corruption in the Democratic Party, because let's face it, we have been through two rigged, I will use that word, definitely what we've been through in the past two primaries, is that in itself would be reason enough for people to be saying, what are we going to do next? We can't continue to go in this. However, we have to also build power and gain power. So, Nina Turner is running as a Democrat in Ohio 11. And I know that a lot of people, I read it on Twitter, are they're in disagreement of that. I want people to understand the current situation that we're in, that right now, unfortunately, in many, many districts, the only viable thing is to choose one party or the other. Now, I fully support Movement for a People's Party and will be on the national organizing, joining the national organizing call this evening, because People's Party of Washington, the organizers have, followed me on Twitter and reached out and saying, they said on the last national organizing call that they are in touch with people who are organizing for and volunteering for whole Washington for universal health care, so that's going to be high on the priority list of the Washington coalition. But we have to gain ballot access. And so, I was saying that the coalition of whole Washington is built up of independents who don't prefer to declare or share their party affiliation. They're working for the cause first and foremost, because healthcare is a nonpartisan issue. And we have volunteers and board and allies who are in the Green Party, and people who are looking towards Movement for a People's Party, and people who are working, who are elected Democrats. So it is a coalition of people fighting for universal health care at the state level and connecting one payer states for that strategy, and also always taking action in support of the national movement for Medicare for All, for example, for doing what we need to do to get legislators on board with both the House and the Senate bill, the federal bills for Medicare for All. So I hope that I continue to clarify for you all that Whole Washington is a national org, right? We attended Healthcare for All's healthcare conference, and we are organizing for this. We have been organizing it since it was founded. I just think it's all in the messaging, and obviously, when people see something that is for only one state, they kind of assume that that's our sole focus. And while we do have legislation in the Senate with 7 Senate co-sponsors, that's SB 5204, 7 Senate co-sponsors is no small thing. That's more than double what we had on the last time we submitted the bill. So our coalition and our legislative support has grown, and yet we are being blocked from receiving a public hearing for our bill. And so we have a 2-pronged approach. We will continue to pressure our legislatures for that public hearing, because we are under no false pretenses that the legislation with our current makeup would actually pass. But we submit the legislation so that we can continue to pressure the legislators, and so we can get that public hearing that builds awareness and support of the Whole Washington Health Trust. But the other prong in the approach is a ballot initiative, is the ballot initiative process. And frankly, Whole Washington has, as Red Berets, have been crystal clear about the fact that we can't afford to only have one strategy when it comes to our common goal of achieving national improved Medicare for all. We can't. We simply can't. We have to do many, many actions in service to the national movement and local organizing. And that is what Whole Washington, wholewashington.org is all about. So to wrap that up with a big purple heart, thank you, Dr. Dooley, for your support of the grassroots. We really, really, really appreciate you very, very much. And now I had started making a list, and so I'm going to go ahead and give these shout outs, but I was just too excited to do the live feed, so this isn't going to be a comprehensive list today. But I do want, since first, let me preface this by saying, in addition to this YouTube channel, I'm going to set up Red Berets Zoom. My biggest roadblock has been that I started out, I'm a knitter. So originally, you might guess that. Originally, when I had this idea, inspired by Bernie and Dr. Jane Sanders and Roseanne DeMoro and National Nurses United, I was just thinking, well, I want to knit. That's what I want to do to support Medicare for All, is I want to bring my creative efforts. And I've told the story on my previous video of the nurse who saw my Facebook posts and contacted me and introduced me to Whole Washington. And that's how I got connected up with Whole Washington and their whole network of organizers, including our official chapter of Our Revolution and other Our Revolution groups. But all of our Revolution groups have been very, very supportive of Whole Washington. So, and under the umbrella now of Our Revolution Washington Bernie Kratz Coalition. So I don't have their @ but I think it's ORWBC or something like that on Twitter. I'll look it up. And what I'm going to try to do is just add to this list every day. And every time I do a live feed, I'm going to try to connect, I'm going to try to connect all of you up with all of the There's many, 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 many people who have been supportive of Red Berets on Twitter, either by wearing a beret, crafting berets, coming up with other creative possibilities to support Red Berets, or just really strong Medicare for All proponents, and so they've retweeted and boosted and amplified us. Those all are pieces of the Red Berets organizing. But I'm going to get that Zoom. It has been a major roadblock. I don't at this point choose to incorporate and make a nonprofit. That's something that I'm willing to think about for the future. But right now, what I think, that I want to do is just form a steering committee. So anybody who is interested in being a part of that, and wants to join, regular Zoom calls to contribute and be a member of the steering committee, I would hope and invite you to do that. So that'll be coming soon. I do have some work that I need to accomplish today here on my my day off. So I don't know that will be today, but that will be soon. Okay, I'm getting organized, and I'm getting willing to accept the fact that my knowledge of technology is lacking, and that's been one of the main things in my organizing that has kept me from a higher level of functioning. I think there's a lot of people out there who really want to, how can we help the Red Berets? How can we support the Red Berets supporting whole Washington? But there's a lot of that I don't know how to do. So if I'm willing to, number one, say, hey, I don't know how to do this, other people can come in and say, I know how to do it. Like, I'll help you. And Georgia Davenport is one of those people. So it's a learning curve, and but it also sucks to admit when you're terrible with those with tech things and things that basically everybody should have a common function of. I'm comfortable on Zoom in terms of like accepting a Zoom invite and like participating, but as like leading it and screen sharing and scheduling it. But you know what? Part of that has just been laziness and lack of willingness to learn, because my thought process has been, oh my gosh, I started doing this because I wanted to craft and I wanted to be creative. I don't have time to knit all of these things, plus go to work and have a family, and be a whole Washington board member, and figure out how to do all this stuff and organize other crafters who are now crafting for whole Washington. But you know what? So when Georgia has introduced me as the executive director for Red Berets Medicare for All, I like kind of shrink at that. Like, I'm the executive director of my butt. Sorry, not to, but like, I don't feel like that. I don't feel like an organizer. I feel like a very disorganized organizer, and someone who lacks like quite a few tech savvy things, which I feel embarrassed about. But at this point in time, I'm just willing to say, okay, I'm going to do it as well as I can and learn as I go. And I'm also going to explain to people that these things take a lot of hours, and I have to keep crafting them. I choose to keep crafting them and putting them as a priority and as my centerpiece, because these are what help me to feel that I'm in touch with my artistic energy. This is the whole thing. Almost 3.5 years ago that I started thinking this was going to be my contribution. And now it's like I'm an organizer, or I'm a disorganized organizer trying to pretend like I know how to organize. And so I have to also be kind to myself and not feel embarrassed to admit what my shortcomings are, learn at a pace that is like, doesn't cause me too great of anxiety, delegate or ask other people if they can help. Because I do think at this point in time, a lot of people would probably say, dang, well, if you spend a lot of hours crafting those berets, how many hours does one beret take you? Depends on the yarn I use. It can be anywhere from 2.5 if I used a really bulky weight yarn to 4 or even 5 if it's a complicated pattern. Then they would probably, and you're also like on the board of whole Washington, and but that is what we do as organizers. If I could even say how many hours that Georgia is helping the Red Berets and mailing out Red Berets to people, we don't get to, unfortunately, just do one job. So there is both like this awareness that I need to be understanding of myself and let people know when I'm feeling overwhelmed and I need help. And maybe there will be somebody who can step up and say, awesome, I am super good at that. I can help on social media. I've been thinking, that a second or, that several Red Berets accounts, because I do tend to express my own opinions, and perhaps it would be good to have a Red Berets account that just simply tweeted out pictures of Red Berets, retweeted organizations that are for Medicare for all. Again, regardless of, but expressed fewer opinions, because it's perhaps gets in the way of my messaging if I'm, the Red Berets account is the account of Laura Fielding, executive director. I have strong opinions about breaking up the duopoly, as we all should. We're not going to achieve Medicare for all if we don't start challenging power on both sides of the aisle. We have to challenge money and power. We're not going to achieve Medicare for all otherwise. So most of the time, I think I do okay on the Red Berets account. But it also is kind of a lot of hours and could be considered a full-time thing, managing a big account and responding to things. But we do the best we can as organizers. So on that note, here are the ats of thanks. And for all of you who are wanting to, and I know that if you're not mentioned on here, because this is going to be a much more comprehensive list, there are so many of you out there, and I'm just going to keep adding to this running list. And on each new episode, I'm going to give shout outs. But just so you know, these are not in any particular order. And this is where I got to when I saw Dr. Victoria Dooley's tweet and got very excited and thought, okay, just hop on right now. Okay. So I will add to this as I go along. So, of course, I've covered Dr. Dooley. Hope you're following her on Twitter. And at Nina Turner, of course. I don't think that's going to be news to anybody. But, I mean, Bernie has how many followers? So my thought process is always like, how does Nina Turner not have, like, at least half as many, isn't everybody that's for Bernie and for Bernie's policies, don't they recognize that she was, I don't even like to use the word cornerstone, but I'll refer to her as the jawbone. I'm sorry, how does that go? The jawbone, the back. Oh my gosh, what bone am I missing? The jawbone, the backbone. Getting all quiet. The jawbone. This is so awkward because now my dog got let in, so I totally lost my train of thought. But I'm sure all of you that watch this are going to be like, I don't know, Laura, you've tweeted about this like 1,000 times. We've got the jawbone. I cannot believe that my mind is doing this. That's kind of really strange to me. That's okay. Now I need to go and make a tweet about it. But anyway, so to say that she was the cornerstone of his campaign, I would certainly, I look at her as like the heart and the soul of Bernie's, both of his campaigns and the movement going forward. And I kind of, it always baffles me a little bit when people don't understand where we're at in this moment in time, and for her to have expressed so much support for Movement for a People's Party by being one of the keynote speakers at the last national conference. I wish people would take a snapshot in time and realizing, like, this is where we're at exactly right now. Can't you see that was a full-throated endorsement of people to begin getting active for Movement for a People's Party? But that's my thought process. I don't speak for Nina. I don't speak for I don't speak for a People's Party, although I will be on the national call tonight. But my thought process is we have to be where we're at in time at this exact moment to achieve what is possible to achieve right now, while all the rest of us need to be doing the work to make sure there is a party for her to run in 2024. That's my goal. That's my thought process. So I speak for myself, and again, like as more and more people wear these red berets, I won't speak for all of those people. I will speak as Laura Fielding, Executive Director of Red Berets. If you are for Medicare for All and you don't believe in any party or endorsing any candidate, then you can wear a red beret for Medicare for All and wear a Medicare for All button on it and say, I just don't believe in parties or candidates. I'm for this issue. And if you said that directly to me, I'd say, I endorse that thought, right? I do. So I personally choose to still be a bit involved in partisan politics and giving my support to people who I know are true fighters for this cause. So that's where I am at personally. But I completely respect people who choose to be absolutely apart from the partisan and candidate process. That is your right, and it wouldn't it wouldn't mean that you can't support red berets or put on a red beret if you are fighting for Medicare for All. Okay, hope I've cleared that up. Okay, so then also at Geo Davenport, GeoDavenport. And Georgia Davenport is the field director of Whole Washington. So she and I work in tandem a whole lot on Twitter. We're retweeting each other. But certainly she puts out, she's very, very busy. She has a lot to do. That is not her main method of organizing, isn't always on Twitter. If I send her tweets, she will retweet those. But when she does contribute her own tweets, they are always right on the money. So I hope that you're following her. And then, of course, there's at Whole Washington for universal health care for Washington State and national movement building. And deep gratitude in that tweet of Dr. Dooley's. Most or many of those berets, not all, but many of those berets were crocheted by Fran Sylvia's daughter and on Twitter, and she has done an amazing amount. Now she's taught herself to crochet, so she's off Twitter a lot, crocheting berets for Medicare for All and for Whole Washington. But and she's very modest, and so the thing is, I think she'll, I could mimic her New York accent, or I'd probably mess it up. But the thing about it is, like, I think she maybe doesn't want me to like put her front and center. And once in a while, that's a little bit too damn bad because I just can't say enough about how much that she has done to through her graphic imagery and retweeting, and as a retired operating room nurse, the love and the connectivity and the beauty and the passion that she has brought to really helping Red Berets become part of the national conversation through imagery. I cannot say enough. So I hope you are following her. That's at Vote No GMO. VOTENO GMO. She is a unifier in the purest of heart ways, totally anti-corruption, but also bringing people together, like fighters wherever they fight and however they fight. So yeah. All right. And then as I was scrolling through, Rick Maynard came up. So that's at, hang on, Maynard, MAYNARD 9, Rick, RICK. So Rick Maynard has retweeted and boosted Red Berets a whole lot. Again, like I'm doing this and I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm not going to call on everybody today because, and these are not really in a particular order because there are so many, but I will continue this and do more voices every day. I really want to give thanks and gratitude to everyone who is helping us build this. And then we call it, so it's at 50, at 50 or 50 LINESONLY, at 50 lines only. We call her Fitty. Okay. So she's if you have any policy questions, she knows her stuff when it comes to the insurance industry's games and policy. And I mean, she could really answer a question for you if you had one. So she's kind of been a strong voice for integrating smart policy, like knowing the policy with the creativity of Red Berets, because I can't always answer those questions and I'm going to keep learning, but it's not my strength. So I rely on other people whose strength that is, because we don't need to be all things to all people. We can try. But I am a knitter. I'm a knitter and a novice, and an organizer. I don't know if I would say novice at this point. It's been a handful of years, but compared to some people who have really built the single payer movement and fought for justice for decades. So thank you, Fiddy. And I'm going to give a shout out to @Force the Vote M4A. That's all spelled out. Force the Vote M4A. And another creative Red Berets giant is @Kai, KYMOUNTAINGRRRL, Cat, or on Twitter, Lightning Riddles Meme Ma. Okay, she's the one who has crafted these, sewing these Medicare for All masks. Dr. Dooley also has received a mask and put that on, and so she's just like really supported this handcrafting, knitting of berets, crafting for Medicare for All revolution. Another thank you. I'll just keep saying thank you. All right, and so anyway, that is one thing, but also with the graphic imagery, Kat has done so much. She's very, very, very creative. And I'm going to get it wrong, Kat. Coley Og, did I get it right? That's what everybody called him. You call him something else. She really wants her grandfather to become a household name. He was, but follow her on Twitter and get the whole story. I remembered Coley Og. And I feel proud about that, but he was a renowned photographer, and a lot of his work was like stolen and co-opted. I can't really, it's not my story to tell. Maybe I'll get her on, get her to download Zoom, and we'll get her on here to just kind of like talk about her story. She's a fascinating and creative woman who's like been, use the word cornerstone again, a real core. There's a core group of us who I, so far would consider, if we don't have an official steering committee, we need to make that. Then she has been another person, like that's a core person in the Red Berets, creating content, creating handwork, and graphic art. So thank you, Kat. And then also the last name that I have got to on here is @Brie Joy, BRIE Joy, GOY. That's Brianna Joy Gray. And of course, most of you know that she was the, oh my gosh, what is that called? Not the press secretary. Was the press secretary for Bernie Sanders? 220 campaign. I suck. Anyway, she is, I think everything that she's doing is absolutely amazing. That is my, when I see people on there saying, I just can't follow you where you're going on this, like this is divisive or any of that, I'm just like, really? Like, why do you think that Bernie Sanders do you think he didn't know like the truth to power, unfiltered truth champion that she was when she was hired to do that job for his campaign? And if his campaign has any lasting, which it does, he created activists like me. I would never have been knitting these Red Berets and joining up with Whole Washington, who's working for universal health care, and basically the core of Whole Washington were all Bernie Kratz as well, who were like, okay, so he's not getting the nomination in 2016. We're not just going to sit around here and wait for the Democrats to pass, or for the Republicans to pass Medicare, for all. And they're not doing that right now, thinking the Biden administration is going to deliver that. So anyway, I don't understand why people think that he hired somebody who was an absolute truth teller, who was going to go straight at corruption And we need to call out corruption and tell the truth about the Democratic Party, or we're never going to, it's never going to get better. People argue that it can't be better anyway. But it certainly, obviously, wouldn't have any chance of ever standing for the people if we do not call it exactly as we see it. And so when people admonish her and criticize her on Twitter as being divisive, I think to myself, well, isn't it divisive to tell 85% of your base who support Medicare for all that you would veto that you would veto the most popular, arguably the most demanded and popular policy amongst the base? That's divisive. Signaling to the donor class by saying nothing will fundamentally change when people are dying in the middle of a pandemic and we're burning the planet down, that's divisive. So that's my final shout out today, is to @BreeBreeJoy. And I'm going to get to Ryan Knight and Sarah Hansen and Ron Placone. But most of you are probably following all these people on Twitter, and I just I can't say enough. I have my days where I get really feeling defeated and feeling flat and feeling like, what's the point? After you knit so many berets, like, are we really going to go anywhere with this? I think that is totally normal. We go through periods of burnout and defeat, and let's face it, the progressive movement has what happened in 2020 with the establishment just coming in and running all of those candidates for the sole purpose of kneecapping the one person that was going to make authentic change. It is no wonder that everybody is feeling like devastated, basically. So I don't fault myself or anyone else for having days where they feel angry or flat or hopeless. And then we have restarts where our hope is renewed, and that hope is not a false idealistic sense of hope. It is like, Nina Turner always says that our movement is very, very young, and in terms of, the longevity of other movements. So, let's keep up the good fight. And I always will ask you if you will go and share my pinned tweet. Does everybody know who I am on Twitter? Do I know who I am on Twitter? @Red Berets M for all. And if you would share out that pinned tweet, because it has the link for how to order these berets and Kai Mountain Woman's Medicare for All masks. And now she's made some that I think she's either shipping out or has already shipped out to Whole Washington that actually say Medicare for All. And there's like a background that says Red Berets, Medicare for All, which is really, really, really awesome. And Michelle DeVilliers, I am sure I'm totally not saying your name right, Michelle. Sarah Hansen said, let's start crocheting and knitting these mittens because of, Bernie's mittens and stuff. Let's make sure that we're going to do that also for Whole Washington and Medicare for All. So Michelle has started crocheting mittens in red, in different shades of red. And then Michelle has now found a pattern that is crochet that is exact replica of Bernie's mittens. So we'll probably have those on the Whole Washington website if people want, actual Bernie's mittens. And then I suggested to her that we should also do that same color work pattern, but in like red and white or red, white, and green, because Whole Washington's symbol is an apple. We can get completely creative with it. This is the reason that I haven't offered a pattern. This would be my go-to at this point if I was going to post it. It was a free pattern, and for knitting anyway. But really, if you're not on Ravelry.com, or if you don't crochet or knit or sew, you could in your community, if you could think of anyone in your family or anyone in your church or anyone in other social groups that you belong to, or your local Our Revolution or DSA, who are crafters or who might know crafters, They just need to, if, I'm sure most crafters are on Ravelry.com. That's where you can find tons and tons of free patterns. Now for these Bernie's mittens, she said the pattern was free, so that's amazing. She crochets. Same thing with knitting. You can find knitting patterns on there. You can find crochet patterns on there. So the sky is the limit. Let's craft the revolution. You know, as Fiddy at 50 Lines Only says, let's craft the fabric of our future. I just did berets because I'm a veteran for peace, and I wanted to choose a hat that sort of seemed symbolic of we need healthcare, not warfare. So that's why I chose a beret. If a beret is kind of like not something that you want to do, slouchy, you know, some people don't, they say I don't look good in berets. I personally think, oh, you can wear these lots of different ways. This is very like, how I'm wearing it is very beret-esque, but I like berets. But you could make this slouchier, and it can just look like a slouchy hat or a slouchy beanie. And if you want to knit or crochet scarves, or these mittens, or anything else you can think of, if you are a creative person or you know creative people, just understand that, like, I'm one person and myself and a handful of crafters are putting our efforts largely towards whole Washington, because and I'm getting ready to wrap up here, but I just want to bring in this last thread, and that was at the National Organizing Conference of Healthcare for All. That's at HC. Is it HC for All? I don't know. Or Healthcare Now. It's Healthcare Now. Sorry, my mind isn't kind of all there with it. Or it's on overload or something like that. But like as was pointed out during a seminar on ballot initiatives and kind of what has failed about them in the past, and why we need to be vigilant and use that information in the future to not make the same mistakes. One of the thoughts, or and I don't know if it's just a thought, it might be the actual fact. We haven't in Washington state made the ballot yet. It would seem historically like it is the case, although I would say that these other attempts, it's not fair to look completely through the lens of the past, because whole Washington has quite a lot of national support, and we are much further with social media and technology than we were in some of those previous ballot attempts, to where I think that it's not quite fair to look only through the lens of what has happened in the past. But we have to also have like understanding where we are in the present moment. But at any rate, the point was made that we should have $5 million in the bank in order to launch a hopefully successful campaign to the ballot. If that's the case, that and I'm not doubting that it is, I don't know if we can. I don't think we can make it $5 million by knitting berets, but if other people have some good ideas for how, because the question was then posed by Jen Nye, who is the communications director for Whole Washington. Well, if we need $5 million, is it possible for the movement, the national movement, to help us? Now, I know there's other one-payer states too, but at least the solidarity, at least giving like shout outs or potentially including us in emails. It's like we just need to really have a lot of solidarity, and particularly in the progressive community who are fighting for this cause. We can't afford to leave people out who are making significant efforts with ground organizing. If we didn't have all of the whole Washington volunteers here in Washington state also rallying behind Representative Pramila Jayapal's bill, where would that, I mean, I'm not saying, oh, we're not going to support that. That's ludicrous. Of course we're going to support that. And we do support that. And I call my representative Derek Kilmer all the time. He is not supportive. I supported Rebecca Parson because she was running a primary challenge against him, and had endorsed Whole Washington, and was running on many progressive things, but including Medicare for all. So, but it just makes sense to embrace both and And that's been my philosophy with Red Berets is let's organize at the local level, the state level, always the national and federal level. Let's do that creatively. Let's try to connect people up. Let's try to give credit where it's due. You know, when DSA, Medicare for All, is out canvassing, I would never say, oh, why are you doing? You're not in my group, so I don't care. I absolutely support them. And I hope that crafters get the word out, because I think that we can fundraise for different organizations by getting creative. If it's not to knit or crochet berets, maybe it's something else. And hopefully, Bernie's Mittens, Jen Ellis, I think is her name, of the knitter in Vermont. And there's lots of knitters in Vermont. I've seen some activity of it's like also a coalition of handcrafters. Like, hopefully that has been fomented some further action and some awareness among people that, hey, we can really do a lot with creative efforts. So thank you for supporting. And thank you again to Dr. Victoria Dooley. We really, really appreciate you, and wishing the best for all of Senator Nina Turner's local organizing in Ohio 11. And let's just keep up the good work, everyone. Have a good day.